Hi, this is Phil. Just wanted to create a short presentation to talk about foundation versus scale in woofer selection and a two-way design, and maybe present an idea that perhaps you might not have thought about. So I'll start with this. So there's all kinds of vehicles that we can take to get from one place to another or to do what we want to do. And it depends on what our goal is, right? So it's the same in speaker design. So this is a ranking of a lot of woofers that people who are designers or interested in DIY builds have probably seen before, right? Um, ScanSpeak, SB Acoustics, C's, Wavecore, Purify, Morel. Those are all really well-known brands and make some absolutely fantastic products. So I'm not here to disparage anybody because those are fantastic speakers that are on this list. And I threw one that you never see. In fact, I neither I or AI was able to pick out a single instance of a Markaudio Pluvia 7.2 being used as a woofer in a two-way system, a dedicated woofer, anywhere, which I thought was extraordinary because it's got a lot of characteristics that make it a great choice for a small format two-way system. So you'll see up here Markaudio Pluvia 7.2, and if you're not familiar with the Markaudio full range drivers, it's a fantastic 4-inch driver with a really robust suspension and low end capability for a full range driver. Now you'll see that its resonant frequency is a lot higher than, say, the number one woofer in this list, which is the Purify. But it has a lot of other characteristics that make it a legitimate choice as a woofer. And I'll bring those up in just a moment, but we can see that just based on some characteristics of a woofer, like X max, resonant frequency, sensitivity, it kind of fits into this family with the exception of that resonant frequency. But what makes the Pluvia different is when you add moving mass and the estimated rigid pistonic limit of the driver. And this is something, especially the rigid pistonic movement of the woofer is something that Vanderstein has mentioned is really, really important in ensuring that the timing of transients and so forth are very precise and fast, and insists on a rigid pistonic movement in his products. And why is that? And I'll get to that in a moment. But I've come up with two different rankings to consider. You know, what would be my choice if I was looking for an extended bass foundation, control foundation, a lot of bottom end in a woofer. It's pretty straightforward. This is usually the way that woofers are chosen, along with all these subjective characteristics that make a driver special. But, you know, the Purify up here at number one, SB Acoustics at number two, C's at number three. Those are brands that we see all the time, and they're great speakers. But what if it was important to me to both highlight the transients to be picture perfect with the speed of the speaker in line with the tweeter that I have in a two-way, and I've added to that I want to overlap with a symmetric crossover with that tweeter. And that gives us acoustic scale, and I'll explain that in a minute. The ranking comes out far, far different. In this particular, and I'll show you the weightings of the categories, the way that we look at a speaker in this way, the Pluvia actually comes out as the number one woofer within that ranking. Very, very different. So let's take a look at how we weighted these two different ways of looking at a woofer. First of all, moving mass, and that's literally the weight of the cone. And when you have a paper woofer, when you have a more substantive woofer, the mass is greater. And so that may not matter that much for foundation control, but it matters a lot when we're talking about precisely timed cohesion with the tweeter. So it's ranked differently for speed and transients and acoustic scale. In rank 2, I've weighted that at 40% rather than just the 10% that maybe would be considered in kind of the more conventional way that we rate woofers. Pistonic limit. And these are some estimates, and they're rough, but this is how rigid the cone is in its response as it moves sound waves out, and it either has latency because it's literally heavier, or it's particularly fast because it's lightweight and very rigid. And then some of the other ones are more typical ways that we look at woofers when we're looking at the stats. X max, the FS, the resonant frequency, how low can it go, sensitivity of the driver, and power handling. There's no right way to look at any of these things. I'm just saying that there's different ways. So we can come up with a design that maybe has been overlooked a little bit. Whereas mass and pistonic behavior are hard physical constraints. They're built into the driver. When you have a high resonant frequency, to some extent, we can mitigate that frequency just through cabinet design. So if I have a high mass cabinet and I've considered very carefully the volume and the porting strategy or just the strategy of the speaker overall and how it's going to produce bass and bloom, then I can mitigate to a large extent a higher FS and get that driver to reach low. And room gain and even some recommended equalization are also ways that a higher FS can perform acoustically, especially at lower volumes in line with some of the others. So, transient response. If we prioritize moving mass and optimize the precision of the impulse and the timing of the impulse, the Pluvia 7.2, with its really lightweight cone, only 4.3 grams, is highly advantageous compared to a 9.5 or thereabouts mass typically found in the highest excursion long throw woofers. And if you just apply Newton's second law, force equals mass times acceleration, when you reduce the moving mass by 55% in this example, you get a 2.2 times the instantaneous acceleration for every unit of motor force. Okay. Superior acceleration gives us high precision transients, and it preserves the microharmonic textures of things like the brown tones in guitar. And this is what I've noticed when I've created the Ocotillo, is that while I was surprised at how good guitar sounds, I now think about it as the cohesion is outcome of the speed and the impulse. Here's something that maybe you might not have thought about. When you have a lot of overlap between a woofer and a tweeter in a two-way, you have this zone within the most audible portion of frequency where the overlap is active, where the brain perceives a single merged lobe of sound. And I see this in the Ocotillo. It sounds really large because the radiating surface area that's producing that overlapping frequency range is greater than either the Pluvia or the large 30 millimeter dome tweeter. It creates a lobe that's big, and it doesn't feel at all like a 4-inch woofer in any way, shape, or form. It's large. So by focusing on this overlap region and making sure that the drivers communicate and work together in that region really well, you achieve a really big body that feels like a large format speaker. So I just wanted to end with this. This isn't a criticism of any way of looking at a two-way speaker or how to match drivers. Everybody has a system that's designed for their particular room, for the way that you hear it and like to hear it, and for your goals musically, what you think is a musical speaker. So there's no one size fits all, but I did want to explain why I chose a Markaudio Pluvia as a woofer, and I'm very happy that I did, because it's been excellent. And I'll go into more detail down the road, but just wanted to check in and kind of give you the lowdown. Thank you.